Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and this is,
Autumn Garabet.
and today we are going to talk about rock star Andrew Yang, the need for him to unsuspend, but more importantly, actually just as importantly, HBO's Veep. Now you can watch it through Disney. It's incredible. So Veep, actually Hulu did a huge HBO unlock, which unlocked a lot of awesome shows to be watched by people who did not have HBO. That's us. We have never paid for HBO. We ain't got that kind of baller cash, right? So we got this HBO unlock, which is all of HBO's old crusty shows, which are pretty epic because if they're new to me, you know what I mean. And Autumn has watched some of Veep, but Veep has turned out to it is 7 seasons, 2012 through 2019. It's fully done, and I saw something on Veep that I had to talk to you about, and that is Veep is pre-prophetic of the quantum mechanics Everett Many Worlds interpretation. So what are the different worlds that we could be living in depending on what happens in November? What are like the three?
Oh yeah. Biden could be president. Um, Yang could be president. However, I'm not. You'll have to inform us on the many world theories because I think hypothetically, you or I could be president. There are
Yeah,
an infinite amount of
that's it.
worlds.
So actually, that's a good question. Most people believe it's the ever. Most people believe it is the Schrodinger's cat. That's used, and that there are viable decision points, right? So not every single possibility exists. There are some people who believe that, but essentially, dead cat, live cat, and so for
Biden
us,
is president or isn't
right?
president.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yang is still a possibility. He is literally suing New York for cutting him out, so he's like still in the mix, even though he's suspended, right? And still showing signs of a live campaign, right? And then last is Donald Trump, right? So there's that third reality, possible reality. So, but Veep is specifically pre-prophetic of the Biden future. So let's talk about the Biden future. All right. So in Veep, they show America's first female vice president. Oh my goodness, who becomes president when the acting president cannot complete his term. So I'm of the strong belief that Biden is literally not a real candidate, that he's a placeholder, and that once he gets in, I don't. I think he could easily just quit. Like he could just say, "Hey, this was a mistake. I'm 80 years old. Who thought this was a good idea? I'm quitting, and here's your female VP with who you all wanted anyway." Right? So I think that's a very real probability, and Veep speaks right to it. All right. What's your thoughts on that overall? Like the idea of, I'm curious what your take is over the atrociousness of Biden as our president, but like this bright hope of the VP who, if they become non-VP and they become the president, because Biden would step down or fall out. What's your take on that now that we're getting closer to that reality? What do you think?
Yeah, I. So you're absolutely right. That is what is portrayed in Veep. I'm just in the first season, but I know that the male acting president spent 8 months as president, and then did not die, and somehow passed it on to the female vice president. Should that happen in real life for us, I think it does have a lot of pros. I think that it would be good to have a female president, whichever way you cut it. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of
You're like,
people,
any way we get there.
yeah. And a lot of, I think there were a few presidents who had to step in for their former
yeah.
president and then
Absolutely.
got an extra 4 years. And I could see the same thing potentially happening
Yeah.
for the potential female president.
Yeah.
But yeah, election is a real hurdle that Biden could help her jump.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk further about VP. So what I want to share with you right now is one series of quotes, one just small conversation segment from Veep season 4, episode 5 convention, which is so shockingly applicable to our current reality that I have to share it with you piece by piece. So we're going to go through, I'm going to name every single character that speaks in Veep. There's 4 people that speak in this series of sentences. This like extended quote from 4 different characters in Veep, but it's so shockingly relevant to our current times that's why I'm going to share it with you right now. This comes from Veep season 4, episode 5, Convention. So Mike McClintock, he's the director of communications for Selina Myers, who is the president at this point. She's no longer Veep; she is the president, and she's choosing her vice president. And so Mike McClintock says, "What about Culverson?" Selina Myers, played by Julia Dreyfus, she's the president, and she says he's 86. Okay. Ben McCafferty, the chief of staff, then comes in and like essentially reprimands Mike McClintock by saying, "Yeah, that's why we 86'd him, Mike." Like, what a ridiculous statement you're saying, right? And then Kent Davis comes in, the senior strategy, and says, shockingly, the candidate needs to live up to and through the election. This is shockingly real, right? So this is Veep, written by HBO's smartest writers. Like, there are just baller geniuses all over the writing staff of this thing, right? This is highbrow entertainment, and they're saying, hey, the idea of having a vice president who's 86 years old is thoroughly laughable from the perspective of the president, from the perspective of the senior strategist, and from the perspective of the chief of staff. It's unthinkable, and you're a fool for even suggesting it. What? Right? Here we are. Here we are. Here we are. So what we're talking about is Joe Biden, right? And his age. Let's get into the numbers. You want to help me with this, with the numbers? Go ahead.
Yeah, so you can see he was born November 20th, 1942. That makes him 77 today. 78 next January 21st.
That'll be the first day of term 1.
Yeah, should and he'll turn 80 November 20th of 2022.
So
that'll still be in his first term, correct?
Not even 2 years into his first term, he will be our first 80-year-old president, our first octogenarian president. So go ahead. Next one.
January 21st, 2025, which would be the first day of his second term, should he get one.
Exactly.
He'd be 82. And then November 20th, 2028, he'll be 86, as they stated.
Making him the official name of the Veep joke. Literally the joke. All right? And just to be clear, 2 decades past his retirement age. 2 decades. 20 years. Okay? All right. I just told you this is a Veep joke. We are making we are turning our presidency into a joke from HBO Veep show, right? Now you're like, well, how's that a bad thing, Scott? Well, I'll tell you why. There's a country who's already done this, okay? Volodymyr Zelensky is the actual president of Ukraine. He played the president of Ukraine as an actor in 2015, and he became the actual president of Ukraine in 2017. This was so embarrassing to Volodymyr and to Ukraine that they banned the TV show from display in Ukraine. So they did this. Ukraine has already preceded us, right? They made their presidency a television joke. It is hauntingly real, and it is a cautionary tale to America that the reality is, if you play these games, the people will call your bluff, and they will make your presidency so embarrassing that you need to hide the television that mocked the reality that you live in, right? And we'll be in the same boat. Now, in America, we ain't going to ban Veep, but people will look at it and say, oh my gosh, this prophetically called out the ridiculousness of pursuing an 86-year-old presidency, right? America's presidency cannot make a Veep joke a reality if we do not allow it. Please, Joe Biden, you've served this nation. Do the wise and fair thing, and please back out, drop your candidacy, turn your delegates to ash, and allow the 2020 U.S. presidential primary to be rebooted and rerun with candidates that can actually finish the two terms they're actually signing up for, which is what you're signing up for because you refuse to call yourself one-term presidency. You promised the people 2 terms. You would be the first 86-year-old president. We cannot allow this, this servant of America to become a television joke, exactly the way Ukraine is already precedented. I feel we really need Andrew Yang to unsuspend now. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely wise. Veep has a lot to say about politics, and yeah, a lot of it does seem strangely prophetic. And however, I think that it's absolutely kind of making a joke of it because it's somewhat real. There's definitely some humor in that, like truth.
It's funny because it's real. Yeah.
Yeah, because not only was his suggestion like old, I think it's fairly well cast in that it's I think largely old, white, somewhat male, and yeah, and Biden is kind of propagating that, whereas Yang would be breaking it in many ways. So yeah, those were all good points. I think.
Thank you. Yeah, and please, if you're out there, call for Biden to drop his campaign. Call for Andrew Yang to unsuspend, so we can get back on the American presidency not being a joke. That would really be nice. That's our opinion. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.